I'm Dr. Lora Shahine. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we're going to talk about which foods improve your fertility. I'm Dr. Lora Shahine. I'm a reproductive endocrinologist helping people build families for over 15 years and answering questions every day, like how can I improve my fertility and what foods should I eat? It's such a common question. And this question comes from my patients as well as you in this community. Thank you for the comments in my previous YouTube videos because they help me understand what you want to learn about. So take time and comment in this video with other questions that you have and other topics that you want to cover. Today, we're talking about food and fertility. And today we're going to talk about specifically 4 types and groups of foods that have been studied well and been shown to improve your fertility. We're going to talk about fruits, grains, dairy, and antioxidant rich foods. So let's get started. First of all, fruits. Fruits have been shown in multiple different ways and multiple different studies to improve your fertility. One study out of Australia tracked 5,000 women who were trying to conceive over time, looked at their diet, it was self-reported, and women who had 3 to 4 servings of fruit per day had a shorter time to conception. They were more fertile. Now, of course, there's many different things that go into a study, but I think this is interesting. And when patients ask, how much fruit or is fruit positive for fertility? I can cite this study and say, one study did show it was really an important factor in their fertility. Another study showed higher fruit intake can improve sperm parameters. One study looking at diet and fertility is the Nurses Health Study. I mentioned this in my previous video where I was going through different diets and nutrition for optimizing fertility. So go check out that video. In the Nurses Health Study, it did show that higher fruit intake was associated with a lower risk of endometriosis. Endometriosis is an inflammatory condition that can sometimes be associated with painful periods, pain with intercourse, and infertility. You can only really diagnose it if you have a laparoscopy and you can see the inflammation throughout the pelvis and abdomen. We're still learning a lot about endometriosis, but it can be associated with decreased fertility. And very interesting in this large kind of observational study, the Nurses Health Study, showing that higher fruit intake decreases the risk of endometriosis. So a little note on fruit. It sounds like fruit is great for fertility for people with eggs and people with sperm. Just be careful and wash your fruit really well. It can be full of pesticides. Organic can have less pesticide exposure, but still wash your fruit and vegetables. What about whole grains? Several studies have showed that a diet full of whole grains and less processed grains can improve fertility. One study out of 2015 showed improved male factor fertility with diet rich in whole grains. Another study out of 2019 showed improved success rate with IVF with a diet that's full of whole grains. One theory about whole grains is that a diet rich in whole grains helps balance our hormones. One study out of 2007 showed that a diet high in whole grains had lower excess estrogen levels and more regular ovulation in the people that were observed. So eat your whole grains. What about dairy? I have had patients who've said, I've been told I have to completely cut out dairy in my diet because causes inflammation and I know it's not good for me. Well, I think everything in balance. For some people, dairy might be associated with more inflammation, but I think with moderation and choosing your dairy products very carefully, you can actually enjoy them in moderation. The Nurses Health Study showed that if you have dairy in your diet, if it's more whole milk or whole fat dairy, you have an increased chance of fertility. It's fascinating. Another study in 2013 showed that a diet rich in dairy is associated with a lower risk of endometriosis. Endometriosis, we just talked about, it's an inflammatory condition. So how do you kind of put those two together? Well, the theory is that dairy can often be high in vitamin D, and diets that are high in vitamin D will have a lower risk of endometriosis. High fat dairy products have been associated with improved sperm parameters. There's a study that shows that. At the time of making this video, I couldn't find a study that showed a diet high in dairy, just across the board, would be associated with lower fertility rates in men or women. And so I'm just sharing the evidence that is out there that says probably okay to enjoy your dairy in moderation. And if you're choosing, it seems to be that choosing whole fat dairy is going to be a better option for your fertility. And last, what about antioxidants in food? Antioxidants are really powerful for health in all of our cells, including our eggs and sperm. And so there are studies showing that diets rich in foods that are high in antioxidants can improve our overall fertility. Great studies showing that sperm parameters can be improved in a diet full of antioxidants. And other studies showing a diet full of antioxidants can be associated with higher success with fertility treatments. One quick way to get a power punch of antioxidants is to eat a handful of walnuts. As I said that, I thought of my husband who happens to be allergic to tree nuts, so he will not be doing this, but there is a study published in 2012 showing that a handful of walnuts can show improved sperm parameters and improved male factor fertility in men that are following a traditional Western diet. So that's an interesting. Other ways to get antioxidant-rich foods include green leafy vegetables like spinach, pumpkin, eggplant, peaches, apples, grapes, nuts. We just mentioned walnuts, almonds, whole grains. We were just talking about those previously. Some herbs, ginger, garlic, and even tea and coffee. So in moderation, but those can be sources of antioxidants. So let's recap. If you're going to the grocery store and you are going to be buying food and you want it to be fertility friendly, think about fruit, whole grains, some dairy. And if you're choosing dairy, make it whole fat dairy, and then foods that are full of antioxidants. I hope this video is helpful for you. Like this video if you learned something, comment with questions that you have, subscribe to this channel, and stick around for more learning.